A message claiming to be from the leader of ISIS issued a call to arms to the world's 1.5 billion Muslims this weekend. The voice claims to be Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, rallying support for the Islamic State. The terror group has faced setbacks this year. Troops have been forced to retreat from strongholds in Iraq, and Baghdadi's second-in-command was killed. He said waging battle is a duty upon every Muslim, and no one is excused. He also threatened to attack Israel and pledged to, quote, liberate Palestine.
Reclusive ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, seen here in July of 2014, released a 24-minute audio message today where he vowed that Russia and U.S.-led airstrikes would only make the Islamic State tougher. In the recording, he said those taking part in the fight against the Islamic State will pay a hefty price, and he taunted the United States for not putting boots on the ground. But for as bold as Baghdadi's message was, for the first time he admitted ISIS had suffered serious setbacks on the battlefield. Those losses were documented in a report this week by a leading conflict monitoring group. They say Islamic State lost as much as 14% of their territory in 2015. Just last month, U.S.-backed Iraqi forces pushed ISIS out of the town of Sinjar. This week, Iraqi troops advanced on the ISIS-held city of Ramadi, the group's largest stronghold in Iraq. Baghdadi's last public message was posted in May of this year. This new recording, released on an ISIS Twitter page, refers to events as recent as December 14th.
As Europe's winter closes in on Syrian refugees, many find themselves out in the cold.
The weather is cold. Please help.
As America prepares to accept some of them, many are asking, which of them are true refugees? What is America's role, if any, in helping them? And how many of them are ISIS?
So I take ISIS at its word when it says we want to exploit the refugee program to infiltrate the West.
President Obama says Syrian refugees are less dangerous than tourists, and he wants to bring in at least 10,000 in 2016. But warning signs abound. The Germans say almost 1 out of 3 migrants are lying about being Syrian. The Czech president has warned that Europe is facing an organized invasion and not the spontaneous movement of refugees. One young refugee told this Swiss newspaper he met many radical Muslims on his way to Europe. And FBI Director James Comey has warned Congress that Syrian refugees cannot be properly vetted.
It's not just those who come in here who specifically intend to be part of plots to kill Americans. It's also those who may be most easily recruitable in the years to come.
Clifford May, president of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, says it would only take a few terrorists to get through.
There were only a handful of people involved in the 9/11 attacks. Just a handful. Is that okay? Are we willing to have a 9/11 attack every 1 year, every 3 years, every 5 years?
Presidential candidate Donald Trump has called for a temporary ban on all Muslim immigration. But what this debate seems to really be about is the religion of the refugees, Islam, and if Islam makes them a potential danger. President Obama, who continues to have trouble saying the words Muslim terrorism, seems to view Islam as the same as other religions. But many former Muslims disagree.
Is it? Is it the same as other religions?
No, it's not. Islam is different than other religions because Islam does not accept any law besides Allah's law.
We asked Brother Rashid, a former Muslim who now hosts a popular Arabic TV program called Daring Questions, if some Muslim migrants are coming to the West not as guests, but as conquerors.
Of course. I have family members in Europe and they think the same thing. I visited them and they think that Europe, they hate Europe, they hate the West, they hate their way of life, so they are there to change them.
Brother Rashid says he does not believe, as some do, that every Muslim is a potential terrorist, because he says many Muslims are not serious about their faith. But he warns that all a Muslim needs to do, like the San Bernardino bomber, is suddenly decide to follow the Quran completely. He says that is precisely what ISIS has tried to do.
These guys are devout Muslims. They are not just a bunch of terrorists who did not understand Islam. All these guys understood Islam, studied it. Al-Baghdadi, the head of ISIS, is a PhD holder in Islamic studies, so he must understand Islam to get a PhD.
There are more concerns about Muslim refugees. Polls show most Muslim countries are overwhelmingly anti-Semitic. One survey found that almost 80% of Syrians support the Palestinian terror group Hamas. Polls show most Americans overwhelmingly oppose accepting Syrian refugees, and over 30 states have refused to accept them. America is not only a land of immigrants, it is the most charitable nation on earth. But when it comes to allowing in some Muslim refugees, Americans may be forced to choose between charity and safety.
Several European cities are being warned of a possible terror attack that is coming from police in Vienna. They received a warning from a friendly intelligence service, and they are now taking the necessary precautions just to make sure that nothing happens. There's increased vigilance in terms of empty suitcases and bags, a lot of people traveling, obviously, and they are making sure that high public events, a lot of people, are also being monitored closely.
People are very concerned because of the number of threats that they're following right now. The threat that you just mentioned was briefed to the president just before he left on his vacation to Hawaii, and it basically talked about possible attacks in three major U.S. cities, and those are New York City, Los Angeles, and Washington, D.C. Now, this threat was a single source. It came from a source overseas, and it was not corroborated. But that said, officials have to treat it very seriously. So we know, for instance, here in New York, the FBI, New York and Washington, and in Los Angeles, the FBI is increasing the number of agents that are in their command posts. These are 24-hour command posts that are keeping an eye on all the threats. The New York City Police Department says that they have 6,000 officers that are going to be protecting the Times Square area, which obviously is going to draw millions of people to celebrate the new year. In Los Angeles, we know the police are increasing security for the Rose Bowl, which is going to be, there's a parade and the football game on New Year's Day. So this is all part of a broader threat picture. As we've discussed on the air today, the officials in Belgium and in Turkey say that they have thwarted possible attacks tied to the New Year's holiday.
Distraction turned deadly for a man who fell off a cliff in San Diego on Christmas Day. He'd been staring at his phone or camera, completely unaware of the looming danger.
Investigators believe Joshua Burwell may have been trying to take a picture of the sunset when he made the deadly 40-foot fall. San Diego lifeguard Sergeant Bill Bender.
He wasn't watching where he was walking, looking more down at the device.
Research shows so-called distracted walking, especially from handheld devices like cell phones, is a growing problem. The number of ER visits for related injuries, most often due to falling, doubled between 2005 and 2010 to more than 1,500, with millennials ages 21 to 25 the most likely to get hurt.
It's important to recognize this as a problem.
Orthopedic surgeon Dr. Claudette Lejean believes the true number of injuries is even higher.
When they come into my office, for instance, they'll have an injury and they'll say they tripped over the curb, but they'll never admit that they were looking down at their phone instead of looking in front of them.
Mall security cameras captured this woman who was so focused on her cell phone, she walked into a fountain. This man, talking on his cell phone, fell right off the train platform. We spotted Jordan Benston video chatting while crossing a busy New York street.
I know I shouldn't, but I still do it.
Kelly Davis was working away on her phone as she walked to lunch. Kelly, have you ever had a moment where you've walked into something or fallen or?
Oh, absolutely. I walked into one of the very short light posts.
She may not be surprised by the findings of a 2014 study that estimated nearly 10% of all pedestrian injuries are due to distraction. Jim, I know it sounds obvious, but if you're looking down at your phone, you may not see an obstacle that's right in front of you in time.
A slow-motion environmental disaster in California where a torrent of methane gas is spewing into the air. Thousands have been relocated.
This infrared video shows gas rolling off the top of a nearby ridge down into the community of Porter Ranch. It was shot by a law firm representing several homeowners who are now filing lawsuits against Southern California's gas utility company.
You could smell the gas inside the house with the windows closed. And when you walked outside, it just smacked you in the face.
The state agency that monitors air quality estimates nearly 70,000 pounds of gas is released every hour. But health officials say methane doesn't pose long-term health risks.
We feel like this is never going to end, and we have nobody to thank but the gas company. and we want them to shut it down.